leaders have one thing in common, and that is the drive and motivation to bring others in around them and develop a sense of community. Some leaders do that in the workplace, others do that within the cities that they live, and some others do that online. Today, my guest and I, Curtis Webster Jr., discuss the reasons behind him developing his online community, Dads Married to Doctors, the leadership lessons he's learned on his journey, his 4 key lessons that he presented to Facebook headquarters. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Moving Forward Leadership Podcast, episode 73, The Power of Teams with Curtis Webster Jr. Welcome one, welcome all to the Moving Forward Leadership Podcast. It's your host and founder, Scott McCarthy. And welcome to yet another great episode. It's great to have you here. Here at Moving Forward Leadership, we're all about one thing only, right? And that is making better leaders. So if you're just starting your leadership journey and you're not quite sure where to start, if you're a seasoned leader and you are interested in learning more, or you're someone who's thinking about making that jump to a leadership role and want to be set up for success before that happens, then you found the right place, ladies and gentlemen. I take my over 20 years worth of leadership experience and I couple that with my world-class guest. It's just Curtis Webster Jr. today. And we talk leadership at a practical level. So not just theory or ideologies, but really practical advice that you can implement today, tomorrow, next week in your leadership journey. So thank you for coming out. Before I dive into discussing today's guest and topic, I just want to make one quick, powerful announcement. And that is I'm announcing soon launch of my Power Goals program. So if you go back, you'll see the Power Goals episode, and there was a lot of interest in this topic. So instead of just having a podcast episode, I decided to make the leap and develop a full program for you. So if you're having trouble deciding what goals are best for you, if you're having trouble figuring out how to go about achieving your goals, if you're having trouble finding the time to achieve the goals, whether that's personal or business, then this program's for you. I'll take you through a 5-step process on how you can go about figuring out and achieving the goals so that you get lasting success, so that you don't become one of those 92% of people who at the end of the year fail at their New Year's resolutions. If you're interested in learning more, then simply go to movingforwardleadership.com/power. And from there, you can sign up to the VIP mailing list, which will be solely about the Power Goals program. When its launch date is coming, more information regarding it, and most importantly, how you can sign up to it. So if you're ready to make some changes in your life and you feel like this could help you, which I'm certain it can, then swing on by. Again, that's movingforwardleadership.com/power. So who's my guest today? Curtis Webster Jr. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, he's not an author. He's not a motivational speaker. He's not anybody but a great guy, a solid father and husband, and someone who saw the need for a community revolving around husbands, more importantly, fathers who are married to doctors and the challenges associated with that role. Curtis's group, Dads Married to Doctors, has been one of the most explosive growing groups on Facebook, to the point where it was actually noticed by Facebook itself. He was invited to Facebook headquarters in San Francisco, and then, I won't steal too much thunder, made a couple key presentations. When I say Curtis isn't an author or anything like that, doesn't make him any less of an important guest than the previous guests I've had on the show. And in fact, the message that he brings is so jam-packed with leadership goodness that he's probably the best guest I've had to date. So ladies and gentlemen, Don't go anywhere. You're going to want to listen to this one. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy my discussion with Curtis Webster Jr. on the power of teams. Curtis, my man, welcome to the Moving Forward Leadership Podcast.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. I appreciate it, buddy.
So one of the first things I like to do, which I know you know because you are an avid listener from what I hear, is to get a background check on the guest. So how about you give a quick rundown on us, who you are, where you're from, what you're about, and how you got to where you are today. And then let's dive into this whole building, basically social online communities.
Nice, man. Just so you know, I'm not Canadian. I'm Southern, so you're gonna hear some of that Southern twang come out. But I'm gonna try and do some abouts and all those kind of things, like you say. I'm gonna try and throw it in there. So
let's just get, we keep the diversity. Us Canadians, we like diverse cultures. So you keep the American stuff, I'll keep the Canadian stuff, and we'll represent the 2/3 of North America.
There you go. We'll make it work. Well, Scott, thank you so much for having me. Like you said, avid listener, man. I love the show. I love what you've done with the group. I love how much you've grown in Moving Forward Leadership, and I learned a ton. I was actually listening to a couple of episodes earlier over the last few days, and I tell you, man, I learned something new every time I pop you in there. So thank you for what you're doing, man.
I appreciate it, and that's what I do it for.
There you go. So a little bit about me, background. I am Curtis Webster Jr. I'm going to have a birthday here soon, man. I'm in my mid-30s, so Lord, time flies. But we have, I used to say we have 3 little girls under 10, but our oldest is literally about to turn 10 next week. So we have 3 girls actually right now, 3, 6, and 9. My wife is a emergency medicine doctor. We actually met day one at UNC Chapel Hill, as we call down here, Carolina. So we actually were at orientation for out-of-state students. I grew up in Houston, Texas. She grew up in Brooklyn, New York. And so we met right in the middle at UNC. Our 2 orientation groups got together for some joint thing. It's funny because now with her being in medicine, the whole reason they brought us together was to talk about how germs spread. And their whole goal with that conversation was, hey, folks, make sure you wrap it up while you're here at Carolina. So it's funny that we met with them talking about being safe from a medical perspective. And now here you are all these years later. We've been married 13 years, together 19. And like I said, now she's practicing medicine. And I put together a whole group around the support system for those women in medicine.
Yeah, it's super interesting concept, the group, and one that, thank you for inviting me in to give a talk to the group on leadership and goal setting.
Most definitely.
But let's talk a little bit about what you've built. And first off, I guess how it came about, and then as well the mission of your group. And I don't want to steal the thunder naming it or anything like that from you. But yeah, let's just talk about, the beginnings of it. And then we're going to go down the line of, the recent past, of what you've been doing.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, yeah, I appreciate the opportunity. And excuse me. And like I said, Scott, we've learned so much from you. That's why it was such an honor to have you come in and talk with the guys about leadership. So just to kind of give everybody perspective, I run an organization called the Dads Married to Doctors Group. So this is for dads that are married to physicians. Anybody can join the group that's married to an MD, a DO, or an MBBS. I didn't even know all these different acronyms existed. I have no acronyms behind my name except for JR. I used to tell folks there's no one like me, and then I'm like, oh, wait a minute, there's my dad. I'm the second in line. But yeah, so we are the Dads Married to Doctors organization. We started in December of 2014. So what happened was we were coming out of residency. Like I said, my wife and I met first day of undergrad. She knew from the age of 6 that she wanted to go into medicine. When you talk about somebody that knew, had a lifelong dream and actually fulfilled it, dude, it's amazing. I mean, like literally when we met, she was like, just so you know, I'm going to become a doctor. So whatever that needs to mean for you, let's figure that out now, because post graduation, like I need to be married and we need to be moving forward. If that's not for you, then we need to go ahead and part ways now.
Wow.
What she wanted, man. Talk about leadership, right?
Yeah.
A lot of positions, a lot of type A, a lot of these folks in high powered positions are type A, right?
That is some serious clear direction right there.
So it's funny too, because she even says, and she says, she grew up watching the Cosby Show. She knew that she wanted to be a physician. So years later, when she's in high school, and her mom actually ends up going back to school to end up becoming an OBGYN. She's like, Mom, you're trying to steal my dream. So her mom became an OBGYN, just like Bill Cosby. She then fast forwards, and now, like I said, she works in the emergency room. So we went through medical school at UNC. We relocated, had to uproot the family. In medical school, we had my first daughter, who, like I said, is now about to turn 10. We moved up to upstate New York in Albany. So we were a little bit close to you, Scott. we were in the vicinity.
Yeah.
And we spent 3 years for her doing that residency. We had our second daughter during residency, which was such an interesting time. And then we moved from there. We knew we couldn't handle the cold. We're not like you Canadians. We had to move back down south. So we relocated back to North Carolina. And a year after moving back, we actually had our third daughter. So like I said, 3 girls under 10. But here was the thing. During that whole move, I realized that life was getting crazy. I've always been in IT. I've always worked in medical school, in residency. I was working full time. She was working 80 plus hours a week, multiple shifts. Even as she took on the full-time job and her income increased, I still was left trying to determine what's going to happen for me. I've always known working. I've been working literally since elementary school. I was running a side hustle, selling labels to my classmates in elementary school. So I've always had a job. So moving back here, having multiple kids in tow, trying to determine what was going to be next for me. I was stuck, man. We were building a house for the first time. We needed to upgrade our cars because, like I said, we needed to be able to fit 3 kids. And so I was trying to figure out, is there a group out there? Are there folks that can help me determine what's this next direction for me? I looked across the internet. I looked online, and I couldn't find it. So my wife had actually, in that time frame, joined a community on Facebook for physicians called the Physician Moms Group, PMG. And I was looking for something for me, for dads, and I couldn't find it. So I started. I clicked that little create button. And in December of 2014, I created the Dads Married to Doctors organization. And now you fast forward 4 years later, we're just shy of 4,000 guys in over 25 countries around the world. And we're growing by about 50 to 100 dads on a monthly basis.
That's incredible. Essentially you found a hole in the world, and you created something to fill it, and now you're growing at what I would call an astronomical rate. A lot of people would actually rejoice in that, and a lot of people would be scared with that for a multitude of reasons, right?
Oh yeah.
So I guess my follow-on question before we start diving into the really cool thing you got to talk about, how is it that you've been able to manage this group from day one, from one member, i.e. Curtis Webster Jr.,
right.
To now just shy of 4,000, because that's just an astronomical number that most people can't even fathom.
There's, I will tell you, and actually it's funny because I actually ended up giving a talk at Facebook headquarters.
That's what I've been hinting at.
Yeah, exactly. About some of the lessons that I've learned in the 4 years in being in business. Actually, it was funny because the lesson that I learned in the first year was that the growth of the group actually outgrew my vision for the community. And I know you talk about it all the time, leadership and vision. I even was joking at Facebook saying a lot of times people will say the speed of the group is determined by the speed of the leader. One of the things I learned with the group was the speed of the group, or the growth of the group, was actually dictated by the vision of the leader. So something I didn't even think about early on was where this would go. You asked me, what was the mission of the organization? I created DMD to strengthen physician families by empowering and educating the dads and the husbands to literally become better dads and husbands. With all that transition and everything that was going on, I was literally trying to figure out how can I be better in this role as a dad and a husband. And so as I started finding this group, or actually they started finding me, and I started building this community and this tribe. I started learning and figuring out from these guys that, wow, number one, there are other guys that are going through the same thing. There are other folks that get it and understand where we are and where we're trying to go. And I need to actually set myself up in a position where I can make sure that this thing can keep going, because what we have here is pretty awesome. And so quickly it started outgrowing, and there started becoming kind of challenges with a growing organization that I wasn't equipped to handle. I don't have an MBA. I'm not a formal leader by trade. I'm an IT guy. So I had to kind of learn some stuff quickly. And one of the things I realized very quickly was, thankfully, there were guys in the organization that understood some of these concepts of leadership, and so they could come in and help me because my vision wasn't large enough. They stretched me.
That's you know what? I've always said to many people that the role of leader is not to be the know-it-all. The role of leader is to make decisions with the best information they got available to them by some, key advisors, people that are specialists in various domains, such as, marketing, finance, R&D, yes, sales, blah, 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 IT. You can't be a know-it-all. You can't know everything. But, you've basically been doing what I've said people need to do, is like you make the best decisions for the benefit of the group, and, enlisting the help from these guys. So, no, man, well done to you. What I'd like to hit on is, how did this whole Facebook thing come about, and at what point, how did the group get noticed for you to get the invite down there, and then how did it actually occur?
Yeah, well, man, I appreciate it. I appreciate the question, and it's interesting because this whole thing with kind of being thrown into this Facebook spotlight blows my mind. Facebook literally has millions of groups. I didn't even know that. I didn't realize how big they are, but I guess when you have, a third or a fourth of the world population is on your platform, you're going to have a lot of groups and communities to pop up. So here's a couple of things that I learned that really blew my mind. So number one, millions of groups. And on top of that, Facebook really cares about those communities and is really trying to make sure that we have a place that we can, really connect and really grow. So, for instance, I know you have the mastermind group for moving forward leadership, a great place where you share valuable information. Facebook notices that. This is what's cool. You think of a huge company like Facebook that, I don't know what their IPO was and what they're worth now, but I'm sure it's, millions and not billions of dollars. When I literally got to meet Mark Zuckerberg and shake his hand. So back in February of 2019, they invited out about 250 of the groups out of the millions in there. Dad's Married to Doctors was one of those, which was phenomenal. Then out of the 400 people that were at that community summit, they picked one person to go and talk in front of Mark's closed group of 200 leaders within his organization. I was that guy. Dude, talk about not being formally trained for an opportunity like that. It blows my mind. We're not the biggest group out there. Like I said, we're shy of 4,000. There were guys and folks that were there that had literally groups that were 40,000 or 100,000 people. I think, what they noticed and what separated us apart was the fact that, number one, we are guys. We're dads and we're husbands. There's a kind of a stigma or maybe it's a truth in society that guys don't connect, right? Most guys find their kind of their congregation or their community with their three best friends, Jack, Jim, and Jose. Most guys get their problems answered at the bottom of a bottle, at the bar, right? That's kind of our stereotypical place to congregate. So when I started looking for these guys and finding and being able to create an organization where we could actually meet online and now we even have offline and in-person events, I think that really took the world by storm because I was able to pull, almost 4,000 guys together in a group. And out of those, actually it's like 3,800 guys, 90+% of them are active, both online and in our offline, local, meetups and so on and so forth. I think that's what really struck, Facebook and the larger community.
That's pretty incredible, to get handpicked to quickly give a presentation, I shouldn't say elite, but such a closed group if that would be
Right.
a group of people that you just don't necessarily have access to present to, right?
That's exactly right.
So what were some of your key messages about leading an online community such as the one you were leading during that time? What did you want to press on Mark Zuckerberg and his inner circle during that presentation?
Yeah, it's funny because like I said, I've been so humbled in these 4 years that I've been able to be a part of this organization and really learn from these guys. As you mentioned earlier, I tell guys all the time, I'm not the know-it-all. I'm not the big cheese or whatnot. I'm not the big whiz. I'm the guy that created that pushed the create button on Facebook, and I'm blown away by what the guys bring to the table. So I sat back and I just started thinking about what's happened in the last 4 years. And each year I learned something new. I actually wrote out 4 key takeaways. So I'll go through those 4 real quick and then we can talk about them more in depth if you want. The first one I mentioned earlier was that the growth of the group outgrew my vision for the community. So realizing that if what I probably should have done in advance was actually kind of think about where this thing could go and start putting some things in place. I learned it after the fact. Here was the thing that was cool about that. And you talk about this all the time. Just get started. Just push go. Just push create. Don't get caught up in in all the minutia of, what it could be, what could happen. So the fact that I pushed that create button and just kind of took it as it came, I think was a key lesson and a key takeaway. So that was huge for me. But the second thing that I learned was don't become the bottleneck to the growth and success of your organization. So I pushed create, but then all of a sudden I felt this huge responsibility on my shoulder to be the everything for the group and for the guys. And what I found out was I was actually slowing everybody down. There were guys that wanted to assume leadership. They wanted to actually do more things within the group. They wanted to share content, write articles. They wanted to create a website. They wanted to, promote a podcast or even create a DMD, Dads Married to Doctors podcast. I got to the point where I was holding people up because I thought, oh, wait a minute, hold on. Let me make sure all this stuff is right. So I became a bottleneck. The third thing I learned was with great power comes great responsibility. I'm a big DC fan. I love Marvel, don't get me wrong, but I had to pull that line from Spider-Man. If you know me, I love Batman. But with great power comes great responsibility. As I finally started loosening the reins and letting guys in behind the curtains, as they say, with the whole Wizard of Oz thing, I actually started having to put kind of legal things in place and non-disclosures and so on and so forth to help guys understand, hey, this is a huge thing that we're creating here and access to guys that we have. I want to make sure that we do it right. You know what I mean? So with great power comes great responsibility. And the final thing was, and I think this is what's really been huge with the growth of the group, was number 4, many hands make light work, the power of teams. Finally releasing the reins, saying, hey guys, y'all understand and y'all know some things. Y'all have some skills that I don't have. Let's build some committees. Let's build some teams. And you all let me know how we can best improve and create the best product for Dads Married to Doctors. And since then, these guys have blown my mind with what they've been able to bring to the table.
You are just a walking, talking billboard for my delegation ideology. That all ties into that. And wow. What I want to, we're going to dive in all 4 quickly.
Nice.
So my question regarding the growth of the group outgrew your vision for the community. At what point did you notice that had occurred? And then the follow-on question, how did you reform your vision? Because I think this is something that can occur to anybody in any type of leadership context, regardless if you're in business, whereas all of a sudden you get exponential growth, which has been covered on this podcast a few times, that your company goes from 20 people to 5,000 in a matter of a couple of years. That's obviously going to happen. People's families. Also, we plan on 1 or 2 kids, and all of a sudden now we have 4 running around, right? Because that never happens. So I think it's very applicable across the board. So to reiterate the question, the 2-part question is, at what point did you realize that the vision had been outgrown, the group had outgrew the vision, and then how did you go about reformulating your vision for the group?
Yeah, I love that. Kind of one of the quickest things that really raised kind of these set off my spidey sense was when I realized we started getting dads and husbands that weren't specifically married to MDs. So one of the things we had to understand very quickly, and this was really what kind of helped shape the vision for the organization, was who we are and who we're not. I had never thought about that. I didn't think that, oh, wow, you know what, as this thing is growing and the word starts to spread, there's going to be people that want to join and become a part of what we're doing because they love the energy and everything that's happening. But do they fully qualify? Is this going to be the group that's best for them? And so we started having folks that weren't married to spouses practicing medicine that wanted to know if they could become a part of the group. So I actually, I learned, I started taking notes. I realized instead of me making this decision myself, let me put it to the guys. So at that time we had grown to about 500 to 1,000 people. And I said, hey guys, this thing is growing. You know, we're dads married to doctors. What kind of doctors do we want to, consider, you know, for this group? And I let the guys, we took a poll and I let them dictate the vision in the future for the organization. And that's when they said, you know what, let's keep it consistent and keep it tight knit to folks that are married to spouses that practice medicine.
Yeah, that's, engaging your people. And I think that's something that leaders too often will fail at doing, seeking input for sure. And I think in this case, you're not leading a business per se. You're leading a social group, network group. So getting the input amongst the masses is definitely crucial. So awesome.
And that was hard for me, by the way, because I'm a people pleaser, right? I'm a yes man. So to be to start telling people no was very difficult. That's where I actually had to bring people into those positions to start saying no for me.
Well, you hit on one critical part, Curtis, and that is, what we are, but more, almost potentially even more importantly, what are we not? And I think
that was huge.
I think too many leaders out there end up doing running after, have the shiny object syndrome, right? Where they're running off after every single little thing, focusing in on what they're actually meant to achieve, their organization's meant to achieve. So for you had a mission, for married to physicians, whatever that physician is, nothing more, nothing less. So
that's right.
So let's move on to don't become the bottleneck, the growth and success of your organization. I absolutely love that. So my follow-on question to you, because I'm a huge advocate of this, because I got some great nasty stories. But my question to you is, what did you put in place to not become that bottleneck?
So kind of going piggybacking off the other question, when I realized that I was the bottleneck was when there were 850 people that wanted to get into the DMD group. There were 850 people waiting in the queue that actually said, hey, we see what you're doing. We love the idea of this organization and we would love to join. When that queue got to almost 1,000 people, I said, wait a minute. I'm severely, because here's the thing, with something as specific as being a dad married to a doctor, I had to do a lot of vetting, right? I had to, figure out were these guys really who they said they were, or like the mistake that I made trying to do it all was I let people in who didn't actually meet those criteria and they wanted to take advantage of that demographic. They wanted to come in and actually sell, insurance or vacation planning or whatever to the organization. So I became the bottleneck trying to do it all.
And my immediate assumption is this is before the time Facebook introduced vetting questions.
That's exactly right.
So you actually had to manually.
I sure did. Yep. I was sending personal messages. I was, adding people as friends so I could learn more about their profile, all those kinds of things you have to do, at least on the Facebook platform. But what it allowed me to do was actually put a team in place of guys who had raised their hand from a long time ago saying, hey, Curtis, we see what you're doing here. We love where the group is going. We see that you have this backlog. We want to help out. So I finally had to say, okay, you know what? I trust you guys. Here's where I'm at. Here's the problem. Can you help me with this? They said, yes, we can. And what was taking me literally months, because that queue had built up over months. Check this out. A team of 13 people knocked out that queue of 850 applicants. Dude, in 2 days. In 48 hours, they vetted all 850 people and knocked that queue out. I was the bottleneck, no longer.
Yeah. This is amazing. Love it. There's so many great practical, you're a practical example of what I talk about. So, oh, it's amazing. So let's move on. Great power comes great responsibility. By the way, Batman is my favorite superhero. Just throwing that one out.
I love it, man.
Yeah.
Hey, like I tell my kids all the time, hey, you can't necessarily say that I'm not Batman because you've never seen us in the same room at the same time.
Oh,
so
wow.
So I just walk around saying, I'm Batman.
That's awesome. So anyway, back to great power comes great responsibility. The audience are all just shaking their head, probably giggling right now. So I guess my follow-on question to that is, what responsibilities have you felt that have come from this group now, especially as it grows, and how are you tackling them?
Yeah,
from a leadership
great
standpoint.
No, most definitely. So great question. So with that, one of the things that I realized was the power of the organization that I was putting together. Like I said, when I first started this group, I needed help. I needed support. So it's interesting when you think of something that you start from a need perspective that then morphs and grows into actually a business opportunity, if you will. So I actually legally needed to turn it from just a social network and a social organization into an actual business. So actually after that first year, I actually ended up filing an LLC, and we're actually now working on our 501c3 to become a full-fledged association and a nonprofit supporting dads and husbands that are part of the physician family. So with that, and especially as it became a legitimate business, I realized, okay, now I have business assets, I have business information, and on top of that, and even before all that, I have people's lives. I have these guys' lives, this community that I want to make sure these guys are protected. I had already let the wrong people into the organization that wanted to take advantage. And so now, as I started bringing people behind the scenes, behind the curtain, as we were talking about earlier, now I have everybody sign a non-disclosure. I have everybody sign a non-compete. And we talk about, this is what we're looking to create. Here's the help that I need. Can you help me in these facets? And now I've learned to be very clear about the help that I need and about the expectations. Because when I elevate people's responsibilities within an organization and they get that little moderator badge or an admin badge, that carries a lot of weight. And now they have extra abilities within the organization that other people don't. And so when they say something in the organization, and in a thread, or they make a comment, now they're not only speaking on their own behalf, they're also speaking on behalf of DMD.
There's a lot of great points in there, and no, seriously, essentially that what you're doing, you're bringing, we'll call them employees for the lack of a better term right now, because
right.
They are acting. And like you said, they're no longer acting on their own behalf, but they're actually acting on the behalf of the organization.
Yep.
Not just, Curtis Webster Jr., but they're acting on the behalf of dads married to doctors. So I think I think that is a very big point. And that doesn't matter where it occurs across the board. Doesn't matter if you're in business or if you're in politics or even at home. When that happens, when all of a sudden, someone gets in a position where they're able to speak on behalf of an organization, that does carry a lot of weight, and that does carry a lot of responsibility, because you're not just impacting yourself now, but you're impacting everybody, just like you said, the lives of everybody else within that organization. So, Love it. All right, final one before we get into wrap down. Many hands make light work. By the way, those are words directly out of my father's mouth. The power of team. So, question one is, how do you employ teams, and two, what advantages have come out from them?
Oh yeah, it blows my mind. As you mentioned earlier, what the role of a leader is to not be the know-it-all, is to not be the person that is the best in the organization, but it's to find the skill set of the people that you work with and really elevate those. And that's really been the key. I realized very quickly, folks were raising their hand. Folks were saying, hey, Curtis, we have this skill set. We can help you with this. We see that you're trying to do this. We love the mission of the organization to create better dads and husbands, to empower and strengthen the physician family. We want to help. And so finally, I stepped out of the way and said, okay, what's your skill set? How can you help? So now since then, I've been able to build teams to help me with marketing. I've been able to build teams to help me with web development, social content, events. Now, like I said, we're not just an online community. Now we're to the point where we hold 3+ events per year. So we're bringing guys together in national and international events, as well as I've been able to put together. I and these teams have been able to put together these teams of local leaders so that guys can get together on a monthly or quarterly basis in their own local area and be able to connect, because that's really where it happens. It's not so much about what happens online. It's when you get together and you can share, those stories over a coffee, over a beer, face to face. So building those teams has been phenomenal, and it has allowed me to actually lower my workload.
No, that's the way it goes, right? You divvy out the work, you delegate out, provide the direction, the guidance, the boundaries, time constraints, and resource restraints, and the way they go. And I've been preaching since 3.5 years now. You'll be surprised about the results you end up getting. But you hit on one good thing, which I want to quickly mention, and that's you talked about how basically the online social network is actually spurring out to a physical social network. And I feel like Facebook and social media right now is getting a bit of a bad rap everywhere. And don't get me wrong, I think there is a bit of a problem, but it would be hypocritical for me to go ahead and destroy it, seeing how Facebook is the main platform I use for promoting moving forward leadership and building my community for it. However, I think that we negate maybe the benefit that the social platform is enabling people to actually truly connect physically with people that they wouldn't have if it wasn't there in the first place.
It's huge, man. One of the things that I say all the time, and I hope, one of the things I talk about with my girls all the time and with the family is legacy. And I hope down the line, there's a whole little caption. People will have little quote cards, and they'll do Google searches on this little image, and it will say one of the lines that I love, which is, "Life is better when we do life together." And that can be online or that can be offline. One of the things I've learned and really started to realize is the magic happens in that connection. And it can be online. It can be. That's where it can start. But I'm telling you, when we have a dad's retreat in Vegas or Louisville, Kentucky, and guys that have literally never met or seen each other face to face walk into a lobby at a hotel at the same time, and you immediately have this camaraderie because of shared life experiences and because you share a community, online. It's amazing. Guys that have totally different backgrounds, guys that span ages, 10 and 20 years apart. Some people have kids that are under 5, and some people have kids that are full grown and their grandparents, and yet we're still able to connect and share and do life together and have an amazing time because we were able to create community that started online. I'm telling you, the magic happens with these connections and with these communities.
That's a great way to basically sum up. I love it. Chris, my man, put the wine down. I got one last question. You know it's coming. So you, Chris Webster Jr., what makes a great leader?
Oh, man. What makes a great leader? Recognizing that your leadership is literally only tied to the ability to recognize the value of the folks that you're leading. The recognizing and empowering your team to take leadership of their own. Like I said, I tell these guys all the time, I'm not the magic. I'm not the power. I'm nothing without you all. I go live in the group, and a lot of times it's supposed to be a couple of minutes and it ends up being like 10 minutes long. And I tell the guys the reason it is because when I start talking about y'all, when I start talking about the group, there's just so many emotions and stories that pop up. And a leader literally is defined by, in my opinion, is defined by their ability to strengthen and enhance those that they're leading.
That's awesome. That's quite powerful, my man. Chris, man, it's been a pleasure. It's time for the shameless plug for if there's any dads married to doctors listening to this podcast. I have no idea. You never know. But how can they find you? How can they find the group? What are your resources, etc.?
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity. So if you would like to learn more about us, and the thing about it is, it's not literally just for dads married to doctors. We are literally trying to create a platform to empower anybody that's connected to medicine and healthcare. So if you are a dad married to a doctor, literally go to dadsmarriedtodoctors.com and you can find out how you can join our closed private Facebook group. But also we have a store and we have a blog where we are as dads, DMDs, writing articles and providing products and information and literally hands-on, shirts and things to empower dads all over or empower those that are in healthcare. So we would love for you to come and check out what we're doing and be a part of the community and the movement at dadsmarriedtodoctors.com. And you can find me all across social at DMD Lifestyle.
For the audience, it's easy for you guys as always. Just go ahead and go to movingforwardleadership.com/73. And the links will be there in the show notes. Curtis, my man, it's been a pleasure. It's been a blast. Thank you again for coming out, and take care, buddy.
Scott, you're the man. Thank you, buddy.
Well, I hope you enjoyed today's episode with my guest. And remember always, if this resonated with you, then keep in mind R²S². Rate and review so that more people can find the podcast and I can help more people grow their leadership skills, aid them in their leadership journey, because that's what I'm here for, helping more people. Finally, share this episode with someone who you think it may resonate with. And then finally, subscribe. Subscribe so that you never miss another episode. And if this wasn't enough for you in your leadership journey, then feel free to swing by movingforleadership.com for all the resources related to Moving for Leadership. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, keep pushing, keep trying, keep moving forward. Take care now.